You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop.
Today, we have part 2 of CoOps, our Coop Group.
Everyone's going to love it because it's about our Coop Group.
Duh. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, Mandy, what's your scoop?
Okay, I love getting ready for the new year, and we've already done planning your year and stuff like that.
Yep.
So today, during a little bit of free time, I started going through my bookshelf.
Nice.
And saying, you know what? I have all these books like smashed in here, and half of them I know the kids aren't excited about.
Right.
And half of those are reference books that I just want to have available, but I'm like, they don't care about oceans right now. I haven't heard any,
No one's asking.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't go to SeaWorld on a regular basis right now. We used to go at least once a week,
No one's writing a book about jellyfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really have to have them available. So I have that pile over here, and I start pulling out, and I instead put in our Indigenous American what's that? Diorama.
Nice.
Put that in, and
it looks great.
Yeah, I'm just working my way up the bookshelf, and then they'll just go into a bin, the ones that I don't want to keep.
Super fun.
For out, but for the future, they'll be there. Because I have a whole nother pile of books for next year that are already ready and ordered that I need to put in there.
Right.
And then I was trying to think of how I wanted to organize it to make sure I got through those books.
Sure.
And didn't forget, I really want to do this book and we did this, and then forgot about it.
Totally.
So I was doing that today.
That's fun.
I know it was fun. It was inspiring for next year. And yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, last week we went to Universal Studios.
Fun.
Yes. We had annual passes last year, and because of COVID, our passes were extended, and then they just reopened mid-April for 1 month for those pass holders. So you still made a reservation. It was still low admissions. But it was just for those pass holders, which was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So it was all people who already knew the park. You weren't having people who didn't have a mission when they were there. So I took my daughter for the Mother's Day trip we didn't get to go on last year. And we had a blast. But what was really fun is she was agreeable to jumping back into our social studies. So we turned on our Story of the World. We re-listened to the American Revolution. And in Story of the World, it's very brief, their history of the American Revolution, So it's actually, or the Revolutionary War. So it was actually great because I already had who was George Washington queued up. I already had who was Alexander Hamilton. And then we listened to, what was the Declaration of Independence.
So you listened to all those?
Yeah, we did that.
Oh.
Yeah. So on the 2.5 hour drive up and the 3-something hour drive home, we listened to all of this and the Hamilton soundtrack.
Wow, history is done.
Right?
Check.
No, but it felt so great, and she was into it, and so it was just exciting. And then because we were listening to different tellings of the same historical time period, we would have things reinforced. We heard 3 different versions of the Boston Massacre.
Yeah.
But she knows that it's funny that it's named the massacre because it's 5 or 7 people died.
Oh, I thought it was one person.
No, but it was conflated to prove a point. It was, to the benefit of the rebels, to say that the English soldiers are firing on innocent people.
Right, yeah.
And, I feel like they agitated the soldiers. Not that shooting people was okay.
Yeah. But it was a boy that got shot
that
first,
was a different moment.
Oh, okay.
And that led up to the Boston Massacre.
Okay.
So that's what kind of led up to soldiers being around. Then people were angry. And so they were throwing snowballs at the English soldiers.
Snowballs. Sounds a little bit like today's environment a little bit.
Right, but how much provoking do you take? So anyway, not justifying anyone's position here, but she thinks it's hilarious that the misnomer is the Boston Massacre.
It's hilarious that there was a massacre.
Right? But she lives in a time where she hears about
totally
real things that are huge, and so to know that
the atomic bomb.
Right. But by the time you hear about a massacre down in South Carolina, 2 months later, you know, like it doesn't matter if it was 5 or 7 people, you're enraged because
Right. Yeah.
So it was fascinating, and it's just really neat to have it reinforced through multiple sources, but that you don't feel bored.
Right.
You know, like, yes, I heard this fact, but it's through the story of how George Washington got involved. You know? So it's fun to listen to it.
Yeah.
So that's our scoop. All right, now to part 2, our Coop Group. Very exciting. So I wanted to start with, how did we begin? What's the fuzzy origin story of our Coop Group? I mean, I know that you and I, when we had both always had this long-term plan to homeschool our kids. So it wasn't something we found ourselves doing. We knew we wanted to homeschool. Some of you have probably listened to my backstory at some point and know that I was homeschooled in high school and was essentially a casual member of a co-op. It was sort of an informally organized co-op. It was a bunch of moms working to put on these enriching activities, and any homeschooler was invited. Some things we had to pay for, and some things were just because they wanted to take care of homeschooled kids in high school. So I was an honorary member of this informal co-op, and it was amazing and it was awesome, and I knew that these beautiful communities were possible. I never once, took a homeschooling workshop or seminar or conference or convention or whatever and learned about them in a formal setting. I just always had this daydream of like, oh, well, I can do that. If these moms could do it for a bunch of us high schoolers, I'm sure I can find other moms that we can do this for young kids too. And that would be fun.
Yeah.
And I know that you...
Well, when I took the class, I have to say, it was before, I think my son was probably...
Right. You still took that really early.
4. Yeah. And it was very abstract to me. The whole, you're going to need some buy-in. I was like, what? It didn't totally make sense to me because the friends I was making at the time, it was just beyond what I was.
Right. You just weren't there.
Yeah. Wasn't there. And so I think when I realized I needed more friends around me, I am a community builder usually where I go anyways. I am an organizer. And when I did the craft extravaganza, you said, I've been wanting to do an actual co-op.
Right.
And I was like, oh, and then the other women there, you're like, would you guys be interested in that? And it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we had even just one event that we brought in, and it just happened that everyone there except for one family that came were homeschoolers. It just happened because it was in the summer. It could have happened at any time.
Right.
But it was in the summer, so anyone could come.
Right.
And the people I knew happened to be homeschooling.
Right. Because your daughter took the ballet class I was teaching, and we met 3 other moms, and one of them is not homeschooling, and so she didn't come to the craft extravaganza, but she became a mom that we really meshed with through dance and getting to know each other there. And who knew that you would find multiple homeschooling families in one dance class?
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so then that became an organic place to draw from. So from your craft extravaganza to, was it Charlie? I think next was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, then we did the book club, and that was in January because I knew we needed to do it after Christmas.
And it was right after Augie was born.
Oh, yeah. Because
I was like, well,
that's when you introduced him to the world.
Right.
Yeah. And
Jake came.
And Jake came because he was off on paternity leave. And I had different stations of different things going on. And it was overwhelming for me because I hadn't dealt with bigger groups with a whole bunch of little kids at the same time like that. But the moms jumped in and they helped, and I left the room, and they're still mixing food coloring with milk, and I've moved on to helping them decorate their bags.
Victoria and I were trying to make the stress balls.
Oh my word. That was the craft extravaganza. That was 3 stations of kids. Like, there were over 20 kids there.
Too. Yeah, I forgot. That was the wrong one, but yeah.
Oh, and the slime, I had them making kinetic sand, the stress balls, and slime.
Yeah, so us moms had a great time.
Yeah, and none of them worked.
Well,
I tested out all of them.
Right.
And
but you have to be really precise.
Yeah, the recipes weren't really working. The kids are all...
They're bored.
4 and 5.
They got bored like that. If it didn't instantly happen, they're
But the thing that was cool about the slime was it was temperature changing. So once, I think it was Victoria's daughter, once hers came to fruition, then everyone's like, what?
Yeah. Oh, it's working.
Yeah. And then the kinetic sand didn't work. The stress balls we actually had for a while. If you don't do it, if you do it a lot, then it softens up.
Yeah, if you've ever made cornstarch slurry to thicken a stew or something, it's basically like that. So,
inside a balloon.
Right.
Or
so
double bagged balloon.
In there was the problem.
Yeah, I don't think I had funnels. I mean,
I don't remember.
I think it would have been nice.
Because you have to keep it moving to keep it liquid.
Oh.
So as soon as it stops moving, it becomes this solid, hard mass again.
Which makes it a stress ball. Because you got to really...
Right, but you have to get it in there to be a stress ball.
Yeah,
otherwise, you just have...
You guys were probably outside in the heat, too.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. I do remember
Anyways, but it was really fun, and none of us really knew each other that well.
No. Yeah.
You know, you might have some people you were closer with, and I might have had some people I was closer with. But that was kind of, the kids were still walking on my couch with their shoes on. There was no understanding of that
it
even.
Was taking gambles. You were taking gambles, and you were inviting the people that you knew that were homeschooling in hopes that it would turn out into being a group to move forward with.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, so then we could have a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book club, and then you grabbed them all and said we're going to do Easter. And that was really, and it was on Good Friday, so all the husbands could come. Not all of them came, but a couple of them came, which to me helps bond the families more and bonds the group more, because if you don't know each other's husbands, that doesn't really... You can't really have insight into that mom as much, into
it's
your
not
friend.
A family community.
Yeah.
It's because how many things do us moms do with our kids that the dads aren't there for? Like extracurricular classes, dance class. My husband doesn't know half the teachers because he's working. He's not present at those times. And so there's only so much that you can do to involve him through the telling of the experiences. But that's not the goal. Like you especially had these long-term visions. Like you wanted camping. You wanted group camping. And that's funny because I was like, oh, my high school friends did that. Like every Labor Day, the moms had their site rented. It was a huge group site. You had to pay in and then you'd reserve your spot. But there was like 50 homeschoolers.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah,
huge.
group camping's really fun.
It can be.
Yeah.
But again, we'll get into this. It depends on how much you want to be the planner.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it's work.
Is it worth your work? And eventually it might be, or you have a buy-in that'll make it necessary. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, you'll hear more what we're talking about, the difference between formally run co-ops and then what we have termed our casual co-op, our Coop Group.
And once you run things, like even though we didn't actually get to go camping because of COVID, we did develop our camping lists and our how-tos. And so I feel like that when we actually do go camping, hopefully this year as a Coop Group, we will that's already developed. We don't have to spend time on that.
And I've now met all the dads. Yeah, I've met all the dads now at this point, and I feel like I love them too.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed these opportunities to meet the whole family of these kids and moms that I already love.
Right.
And so now I know, I do feel comfortable going camping with them. Like, I think we can all sit around a fire and have a good time.
Oh, totally.
And not feel like, ooh,
Right.
Because that's hard, and us moms are not going camping without our husbands.
Oh, no.
So
I'm not setting up that, carrying the tent and the bins and the...
Maybe not until my kids are teenagers.
Well,
maybe
and then
when
they
they're
can
teenagers.
help.
So anyway, for us, it was definitely a big priority to involve the dads where it seems possible. And so, what is that? 2 to 3 times a year?
Yeah.
At this point?
Yeah.
Maybe more if we add in camping, optional camping opportunities.
Well, this year they're invited to the end of the school year party. And I purposely made that on a weekend evening so that they could come if they want.
Right.
We've done that for dining in the dark. But they really have to utilize the opportunity when it's offered, because it's not offered much, because our Coop Group takes place during the school day.
Right. And we said this in part 1. We like to be present in our own families also. And so that means the weekends are dedicated to being with the dads because we want them to be involved. We want to be a family unit. And so our weekends are usually off limits for the most part. I mean, and outside of small get-togethers and play dates that everyone's good with. But we try not to organize weekend things unless it's way in advance and everyone knows. And it's a whole family event.
I mean, even the mom's nights out are usually a Wednesday night or a weeknight.
So we don't encroach on the weekend, you know, the Friday nights. So, yeah. All right. So that's kind of the beginnings of our co-ops. And then after the Easter opportunity, we went camping. Our 2 families went camping, and we had our notebooks. And we
that was even a year later. So before that year,
was a whole year later.
Yeah, before that year, we did holidays.
Okay, so you and I must have done it more casual.
It was just casual.
Communicate to everybody?
It only I think we just texted. We had group texts, and we didn't have as many,
right?
Because it was still basically the dance.
Oh yeah, that was the Camel Dairy year. We did the Camel Dairy.
The Camel Dairy was still the more formal year. Have we been doing this longer? Yeah, because when we did our little notebook and came up with the Coop.
That was 2019.
So we had a whole year.
Was the year. I thought Camel Dairy was the year before that.
Was it? Okay, maybe it was.
I think so.
Oh yeah, it was. You're right.
Yeah, because there was the other Valley Center family.
Yeah. So we did the Camel Dairy, and then we made sure every month we did the holiday.
Yeah,
and that's when we did a pumpkin patch. That was September.
Well, who organized it? Was it
I did.
You did. Okay.
And then in October, we did the pumpkin patch just at this local one here. And then November, we did the Friendsgiving, but I was sick.
Yeah, I didn't go to the pumpkin patch.
Oh, yeah. And then in December, did I host it? I hosted a Christmas party. Was that the elf year or was that the year after?
That was the year after.
We do so many.
Right.
But we did something for Christmas, I feel like.
Maybe that was with your previous church still? That was done already.
We did some. Oh, I had the group over and everyone brought an ornament.
We did a daytime. Yeah, not a family.
And one husband came to that actually. Yeah. And so then every month we did something. And then the following year, that's when we officially named ourselves. Right. We had our notebook, we had our intro video, we had our invite video. Yeah. And that's when we did bring on a couple of new more families.
And what we learned in the year of doing the holidays was that because you and I brought the group together, when we didn't go to things that people knew we weren't coming, whether it was coincidence or not, it seemed like other people would start dropping out. And so then it was really hard. And then there was a lot of pressure on you and I that neither of us, or that we couldn't both miss something. So if we both had a sick kid, what were we going to do? Because if we weren't there, this event just wouldn't even happen.
I know.
Right.
So, and that's not what you want.
That wasn't what we wanted.
I wouldn't say it's unhealthy, but it's not. It's not healthy for the group to be dependent on us, and nor for our children, because that's who they were friends with.
Right.
And so if the friendship is not forming outside of our children,
that's a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah, that was a lot of pressure on them. Yeah. And it's been really great because now people are getting together and doing play dates without us being invited.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Totally.
And of course, I think every once in a while I feel a little FOMO and I'm like, no, I want that for them. That's that we need, that intimate development.
Right. We are not going to be able to be every person's best friend.
Yeah.
But I love that I have a group of solid mom friends and my kids have a group of friends. But they're not, I tell my daughter all the time, I don't expect you to be everybody's best friend.
Right.
I expect, kindness and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I know you're not going to be everybody's best friend, and that needs to be a mutual thing. And so when we invited people in, it just took a little bit of time for everyone to settle in. So I'm not sure that we could have done it any differently.
No, I don't think. Well, I think that's just what the nugget of advice is for others is to say, give it time.
Yeah, the growing pains. There's going to be growing pains, especially if you go in it and you're inviting people you already know. If you go in it with a bunch of strangers, then there's a little less. But we invited people we knew because those are people we already naturally formed a relationship with and wanted to keep growing with.
Well, and I remember different people were asking me for play dates, and I really value my days at home.
Right.
And between gymnastics and I think we were doing swimming lessons or whatever, all the things we were doing, I didn't have time for play dates every other day.
No.
And this was also another way of getting all the play dates to happen. So I actually had one person say, well, you're not asking me to do any play dates. I'm like, the Coop is the play date.
Come to it.
If you come to the Coop, that's the play date. That's your play date with me.
Right.
That's why I'm doing it. To make sure my kid gets play dates with your kid and these other kids. I can't schedule all these.
Yeah. And so this is another callback to part 1. The people who are involved in your group need to have the same understanding. Mm-hmm. And so if someone is using the group to meet certain needs that isn't the common goal of the group, it may not be a good fit.
Right.
And that's its own podcast, is talking about the fit of people in your co-op. But that's for you to decide. But I think it has to be very clear, like, oh, no, I'm using the Coop Group for this kind of thing. I already have different friends that we do different things with. You know, like you have your friends in the other county that you have prioritized. And so that's already your once a week, or you had Disneyland passes. So that was your day away from home. And so there wasn't opportunity for more.
Right.
And if your kids aren't asking.
Yeah, you know, exactly. When they're asking, then I'm trying to follow up.
Right. And while at the same time, while we did want our Coop Group to grow friendships within the Coop Group, it didn't mean specifically only asking you and me for these one-on-one play dates also, even though that's okay. Yeah. It just wasn't the expectation, you know?
Yeah. Just pointing this out, expect some drama.
Yeah. There's always
in a co-op. I mean, it's relationships and it's interaction and it's communication. And that's part of the growing too. I feel like over time, as we all sync with each other, it's kind of like the monthly thing, right? Eventually you'll all be synced.
Yes.
But we'll all be synced with each other. But it takes some time to get there and some feeling out and some vulnerability and deciding, do I say something? Do I not?
Yeah. And I feel like, so, the year that we did all of the formal, you know, we came up with the Coop Group and the video and everything. That year I had said, we need more frequency because we need to develop the relationships. So when you have one family who can't come to the once monthly activity.
Yeah, there's now, big vacancy.
Right. And because we chose to grow that group that particular year, I was like, we need more frequency. And that wasn't your thing. You're like, oh, I don't really want to go meet up at the park. We don't need that.
Right.
And, okay, that's fine. But that's the point, is that you don't have to come to everything.
Right.
But if more people are coming to more things, then the idea is, you know,
you're creating,
right. You're creating more friendships, and then maybe everybody can come to the big events. Right. You know? But the smaller play dates didn't end up working out, because even that year, it still turned out if you or I didn't show up, most people didn't come. Or it was too easy to say no to a play date.
There wasn't something organized.
Right. There wasn't a buy-in. They didn't volunteer to bring a food, or they weren't going to pay their $3 for their craft.
And then we wouldn't even know who was coming. And I know one time I showed up and just one other family showed up. And another time, same for you. But we felt like, well, one of us had to be there.
Right.
Was it going to happen?
Tag, you're it.
Yeah. And then it was like using up a day we could have been at home, you know.
Right.
And not that having that single family there, which didn't matter. It was just at the same time, well, then I would have just picked a different time and coordinated with them differently.
Right. Then I would have just asked them for a play date.
Yeah, or come on over.
Right. You know. So that didn't quite work out, but that was a trial and error. And so it was funny because we had many things scheduled that year.
Yeah. Well, and I think people did come, though, when it was at the safari park.
Yeah. It was just they didn't want to come to the local park.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just depended. It seems like the needs of the group were more experiential. They didn't need the get-togethers as much. Now.
But you wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
So we had to try, because I was like, all right, well, I don't think anyone's getting to know each other. So we got to do more.
Yeah. I agree with the more for sure.
Right.
I wasn't willing to commit to that, but I agree with it completely.
So it was a hard thing for us to choose to do, but we tried it. Then that year became, I remember feeling frustrated at the end of that year, and you and I were like, we're not doing anything like this again.
Yeah.
You know, and so like the end of that school year, we felt uninspired, and then we took the summer off, and then we were like, oh, you ready now?
Yeah.
And that was super fun. And then 2020 hit.
Yeah.
So we had a great year leading up to 2020, and we had some great things on the calendar for the remaining months when everything got shut down of the school year. And then that was a bummer. And
you know what's really cool though is that since we were already an established co-op, we could actually go through it together.
We did, yeah. And we created this whole virtual co-op program, which was really rad when we thought it was only going to be a month.
Yeah.
So we debated how the frequency, and we decided on 3 days a week that we could have things.
We were all home anyways.
Right. Yeah. And nobody had to come. If 2 of your kids didn't want to do this activity, they didn't have to.
Right.
So you and I figured out all the different activities we wanted to do. We involved some of the other moms if they were interested in. And it actually was a really good turnout.
Yeah, we did book reports. We
Virtual
did
talent show.
Yeah, we did. We played games like bingo. Yeah. We did the drawing. I think there was storytelling or finish the story or there was and then the Fancy Fridays where they got to learn about all these different music acts.
Yeah, I curated a different genre each Friday, and so we did like circus performing one week, and we did dance, and then another was music, and it was pretty cool.
And I think it's pretty cool in that they. I mean, my kids didn't really suffer in the stay-at-home order,
right?
But that's because they're probably exhausted from being out all the time. You know, they're probably glad to finally get to be home and do their independent play that they never get to do, right?
You lived a really busy, full schedule life before.
Yeah, because it was Disney passes, SeaWorld passes, Botanical Gardens, Balboa Park.
And you use your passes.
Oh, I make sure. Yeah, it's like 30 times a year.
I went twice. That's fine.
Yeah, and then there's also youth group and there's all that. So I feel like it was almost a relief for them.
Yeah,
but 1 or 2 of them who's super social really needed those Zooms that we had, the virtual. Right. And then they got to go through this together.
Yeah, they did.
And so we did a poetry tea time too.
And totally.
People made their tables fancy, they dressed fancy, and they presented a poem. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty incredible.
It was really rad. Yeah. We have a blog post about that. We'll link in the show notes. So that ended up being a really unique opportunity. Was like, oh, our kids actually miss each other. And they got to know each other in a different way because of it, because they couldn't break out.
Right.
There was no breaking out. It was all done as one cohesive group. So that gave some of the quieter kids an opportunity to have their own moment to be heard, and for the other kids to listen to them.
Yeah.
You know, some of those kids are just like nonstop, and they don't actually take in anything from someone else.
Right.
You know, and as they're getting older, that's happening less and it's getting better. But this was a great opportunity for all those other kids who felt a little bit like on the sidelines. And so I noticed that changed the dynamic. Then we kind of took the summer off. And
then one of our friends said, do we have a co-op anymore?
Or is this even a thing? And we're like, well, yeah.
And then we weren't as worried about COVID anymore.
Right.
It became like, okay, now everyone's back to work, going to grocery stores, wearing masks.
Just be cool.
Just be outside.
Yeah. And if you're sick or think someone's sick, just don't come.
Yeah.
Just be a good person.
That was our big rule. Like if anyone in your family's sick, normally people would still come before COVID, and then we would pass around colds or whatever.
Right. You know, the old days.
Yeah, but it was actually really nice that even colds didn't get passed around because people would stay home. And it was a bummer for their family to miss whatever.
Oh, for sure.
You know.
But we all understood, so there was less pressure, like, oh, you gotta miss, you know. And I had the toddler who you can't tell if he's got a real cold or something else. And so I was like, well, I'm out, guys, you know, and that's just the way it was. And that's okay. But
that's when our book club started.
Yeah, we chose book club for that last year, and it ended up that the kids were asking for more. Oh, when do we have Coop Group again? Was the feedback we heard. Mine wasn't necessarily asking for more because we were back to all of our normal.
Yeah.
But some of those kids were like, we want another Coop Group meeting.
Well, like my daughter started asking to do play dates with people who she didn't used to ask to do play dates with, which was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was I think for our group in particular, coming out of 2020, really bonded the group. And so we're going to talk about that more in part 3 of co-ops, with how we're choosing to go forward, and how do you know when you grow your group or not grow, and you know, so really we chose the model of our co-op based on our preferences. So really, it's what do Jessica and Mandy want to do.
I know, and how nice that we have all these wonderful friends that are like, I could go for that. Yeah. I could do that. Yeah, that sounds great.
We really do value their feedback, value their interests, but when it comes down to it, if we're the ones planning the majority of things, then we're going to kind of do things that we're interested in, or we know that our kids will enjoy.
And we're doing the most thought about it.
Right.
You know, and these are the things that we're willing to do and lead. And so if someone else wants to come up and say, like we had one of our friends in the co-op say, I'd like to do a museum tour or
let's
things like
do
that.
it.
So I'm like, that'd be awesome. So she's going to bring that to our planning meeting, and maybe she'll have it all planned out, or maybe she'll say, hey, what museums do we want to go to? Does anybody have a Balboa Park pass? Like,
exactly.
And then she could run with that and then assign us stuff and however.
Totally. That is the goal. So when we say, you know, we do what we want to do, we mean, what are we willing to contribute? Not the only things that our Coop group is allowed to do. I don't feel like a dictator. I don't feel like nobody else is allowed to plan anything. In fact, I feel like we try to reiterate every year, please plan things.
Yeah.
You know, we want to do what you want to do. If your kids want to go here and you think it would be a great group learning opportunity, invite the co-op.
Yeah, and I don't know what I don't know. I don't know that I don't know all these other fun activities. I didn't think to go strawberry picking.
I just know I can plan, you know, an event every other month.
Yeah.
You know, I can't really plan more than that and feel like my heart is in it. And so then that means, you know, we need to share. And so if you and I are trading off every other month, then this is what we're going to do.
Well, and that was something else we figured out before. You and I were both doing every event, and that was like, we were sharing the load, but it's still more exhausting because we have to be super thoughtful and discussing and figuring things out together. Whereas if you just have one person in charge, the other one gets to just show up and gets a break. And I think that makes a difference to me.
That was definitely nice.
Yeah.
And then we had some moms this past year, especially, who maybe weren't totally ready to lead a group on their own, but were totally chiming in. How can I support you?
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't want to pick a book, but here we go. Or, you know, and then, you know, life just happens. And that's the best part about this group, is just being understanding and grace giving, and knowing that people's lives change. And we're not here to judge or to complain about it. We're here to support you and pick up the slack where we feel like it's necessary. And at the same time, if nothing were to happen, that's also fine.
Yeah.
It's the way it is. You know, I think you and I have high expectations because we view it as a reflection of ourselves. You know, but really at the end of the day, if we didn't have a Coop group this month, or how disappointed are our kids?
Yeah.
You know,
well, then we just might do a play date with one or two people.
Exactly.
You know?
And that's great. So the way that we set it up is really conducive to the current leadership, which so far is primarily you and I, with input and comments and support from the other moms.
And I think you can get more ownership and buy-in from the other moms if they are more part of the planning. And so last year it was really nice. We did our planning meeting, and I was like, let's do a book club, and here's all the great things of why we could do it.
Right.
And then on and on and on. And then finally I was like, who wants to do the book club? Thumbs up, because it's on a Zoom. And they're all like, thumbs up. They wanted to do it. Whereas if they had said, no, that's not going to work for us, like, we're reading all these other books, then we could have been like, okay, what about a book club every 3 months?
Right.
And we space it out, and then you guys have other ideas to do the other months.
Right.
And we could have gone with that. But people signed up. They said they were willing to make sure they read the book, and it was handled.
Yeah, it was awesome. And they've had great suggestions. I mean, we tried to even get a co-op pet going.
I know. I was in charge of that one, and I let that one go.
Oh, girl. I don't even put that on you. I think, obviously, while some of us were willing to participate, that's one of those, unless you want the pet,
Yeah.
You're not going to do it. Do you want the class pet all the time?
Yeah, no.
So,
and I don't want to have to worry about getting it to someone's house either.
So it was a fun idea, but it was just not necessarily a practical one. And who knows, it might resurface later.
Probably when they're a little older and we know for sure.
Start driving themselves.
Or we know for sure they can handle it, and then we would just bring it to a Coop event or something.
And I think the unknown of COVID era was that you didn't know if you're going to get shut down again. So you could be stuck with that pet for 3 months. And that's not what you signed up for. You know, for those people who were just willing to have it for a month.
Yeah.
You know, because conceivably, if you were coming to every Coop event, this pet could travel.
Yeah, totally.
Except for those really hot days.
I mean, if it's a beta fish, I don't even know how that water's sloshing around everywhere. We would do that.
Put it in a bag.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not disappointed, you know. So sometimes we overplan and we overthink things, but it's fun. You know, we did it together. We knew who was interested and not. And, you know, it was up to us to figure it out. And
and we were going to have 5 families going camping.
Right.
That's a pretty good turnout for camping.
And we had more interested, but already had plans because we chose Halloween weekend.
Yeah.
And some people already have their annual Halloween plans.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to do it again, you know.
We need to put that on the agenda.
Yeah.
Pick a weekend for that.
And so we'll tell you more about our agenda in the next
episode.
Yeah. So, you know, that's just kind of how our Coop Group is, and we adore
We love
Coop
it.
Group.
And that was, like I said in a previous podcast, 2 out of 3 of my kids picked that as one of their 2 or 3 highlights of the year.
Right.
Was the Coop Group event.
Super cool. And this year in particular was pretty spectacular. I think I mentioned it on here. My daughter, she was sad that the book club was going to be over because I think she liked the experience of reading it together because
it's the shared learning.
It's
so the shared learning,
yes.
But it's not this huge commitment. Right. I mean, most of these books could be read on a couple car rides, you know, for an audiobook or in 2 sittings.
Totally.
You know, it wasn't a huge feat.
Yeah. So in our next episode, we're going to reveal our theme idea for this year. And at the recording of this, we won't have had our meeting to tell our other co-op moms yet.
Yeah, we will.
Not of the filming of this. We're filming this in the next few minutes. Yeah. But by the airing of it, we'll already have presented it and know if we're doing that theme or not. So I'm excited to reveal that to you guys. So you guys are going to get all of our pre-planning discussion, essentially, or at least some of it. But a lot of thought goes into it. You and I have our own conversations, and then we have conversations with the other moms because we do want their buy-in. I don't want.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to show
run a
up
group
for
they
something.
don't want.
I know.
That's not my goal. And like you said, you don't know what you don't know. So I want to know what they would find fun because I probably just didn't even think of it. It's not that I don't want to do it.
We have
I just didn't think of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a dance teacher. You know, like I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm comfortable leading and doing and you know, but there's plenty like I'm not going to pick a hike.
Yeah,
it's
and I think for the book club too, it started off I think I was like, let's do a book club, but I think I was thinking of a series like Magic School Bus or Magic Treehouse, and then it just shows what a nice balance we are because then you were like, not everyone's going to want to do Magic Treehouse,
right?
But what about doing classic books like Mouse and the Motorcycle, Black Beauty?
Right.
Or even Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. We did.
I'm trying to think of classics that we did. Because some of them weren't classics.
Or Fried Worms.
Fried Worms.
What is it? Eat Fried Worms. That one's an old classic.
Yeah. So we did get some of the classics in there.
We got a variety. We debated running The Hobbit, and then we decided not to. So that was actually going to be the kickoff, and it ended up being poetry instead, which was super neat. And then...
But it would be definitely fun to do that whole series. Like, what is that, 4 books? It would be fun to do that when the kids are older. The Fellowship, the whole series, like The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Like, to do it when they're older would be pretty cool.
Oh, I think that would be a special electives unit.
It would be.
Those other books are long. The Hobbit is totally doable, I think, as a one-off book club thing. But the other ones are definitely, you got to be committed.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I was thinking, older, like when the teenagers are reading them themselves.
But I wouldn't, it would have to be, but again, by the time our kids are older, we imagine that this group is going to change. And this was actually a big thing that we discussed at our retreat and planning meeting was growing. And we loved the unique flow of this group this past year and how dedicated the majority of the group was. And so it was this really delicate conversation of, do we just keep it like this? Do we let it ride one more year?
Yeah, when it's super special as it is, why would you want to cause any ripple?
It's just nice because we're just small enough that you can do something at someone's house, and barely.
Yeah.
So, and then just big enough that you get the real benefit of these group activities. And so it's this really unique setup, and we don't always have to break off. But I one of my arguments for riding it out one more year is we have a bunch of younger siblings in this group. And so eventually there's going to be a little bit of a split. We're going to have to offer things to two unique age groups, or average age groups, because while we could all do an animal park field trip, that's fine.
The moms and the teenagers might go off.
Right.
And then the moms with the littles would all be in the little playground area.
When the average age of the group is becoming 12 and 13, what they're going to need or be willing to spend time outside of the house doing is going to be a little bit different than 6-year-olds who could keep doing the old version of the Coop Group.
Yeah.
And so there's this idea that this co-op, we might either have two separate co-ops that some of us who have two very different age groups to deal with, I'll have to be a part of too.
Yeah.
Or we have this idea of it's going to eventually become this elective style. And, you've got one parent who wants to host a monthly craft thing. You have one parent who's going to teach a monthly science lab.
Yeah.
Anything is the topic.
And, and you could also do it where, let's say it was the pumpkin patch. The teenagers could definitely have fun at the pumpkin patch in the hay maze and stuff. And then the little ones would have,
But they don't want the workbook that we created for the 8-year-olds.
So you would just do two different things, but all the moms could still be together. But it won't be like that for every time. I mean, if you're going to a playground every time, eventually the teens are going to just be sitting on the tables waiting.
And that's definitely not what we want. I'm not going to buy into that for my older child. We've got
or they have their book club discussion. And the littles are playing on the playground.
And so that's the thing, is you have to have kind of two separate parents sort of organizing the things.
Yeah, you would. Because the older and the younger.
Because we didn't end up liking just the play dates for the littles.
Well, anyway, and we tried that for the book club even. We had a picture, when there was a chapter book, we had a picture book to go along with it. And the picture book didn't really get addressed. Like, I think the littles are still too little to even... and they didn't care to be part of any discussion. So the picture book didn't actually matter unless that was the primary book.
Which for a couple it was.
Like the Crayon Man and the Crayon Man and the day and the Christmas crayons. Crayons. I feel like I'm a British person trying to talk in
Did I ever
American
call you
English.
Out on a podcast about it? Because for the longest time I was Googling KRANZ, crayons. The day the crayons quit? What?
Yeah, no. It's crayons. Crayons.
It's like you're not from California.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's how British people talk when they're trying to do an American accent. They're
crayons. They over enunciate each syllable. So we definitely know that our group is going to have to change, and talking about that was really fun. And at that point, it makes perfect sense to grow the group, because you're going to need more leaders, because you're going to need more things, and then more things are going to be elective, and then maybe you do have your giant campground where everybody's coming, and then you get to see all the people from our original Coop Group, and and all of that stuff. And that doesn't mean we're not all good friends still, but we know that people come and go, and so it's important not to have such an exclusive group that in 5 years there's only 3 of us.
I know.
And then it's not really a group and serving people in that way, although I'll still value our friendships.
That's what I was like, on the, I was just like, as long as nobody moves away.
Right. So if you know you're moving, you better find your replacement now.
I know.
No, but we try to make sure that we are comfortable with our group changing, and we don't know what it's going to look like. So it's hard to know if we're making the right decision now. However, we just have to go based on feeling and then asking the group. And so,
I mean, that's kind of the solidifier is how does everyone else feel?
Right. So, well, we're going to tell you about that next. But I think that kind of,
I don't know. I feel like we just talked about it.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Okay.
Oh, no. We're going into the real, we're going to lay out the planning for them.
Okay.
All right. So I think we're good talking about our Coop Group, right?
Yeah. Do we have a question?
Yeah, we do. So it's time for the
Coop QA,
where we answer your questions.
Look at this.
If you have a question you want answered, you can contact us through our podcast page on the website and filling out the form, or
at thecoopHomeschool.com.
or you can email us mamahens@thecoopHomeschool.com. Okay, today's question is, any ideas to help my 7-year-old remember how to spell words?
Ooh.
You've got a curriculum, I think, that is like exactly that.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. My curriculum is you spell with your fingers. And you just sound it out. And so there's no memorizing of any spelling. And over time, and I think it's precious seeing how they hear things. Yeah. Sometimes it's supposed to be a TH, but in their head it's an F, and it's precious seeing that.
Right.
And I'm not going to correct that.
Right.
They don't have to, they're 7.
Right.
They don't have to spell that right.
No. Are they able to translate sounds into something? You know, so whether they hear it wrong or not is almost irrelevant. Are they able to take what they think they hear and put it on paper?
Yeah. And it's not, I feel like, and then when they see it on paper, are they able to sound it out knowing their phonograms? So there's no memorizing or remembering needed if over time you see progress. And over time, by the time they're 9, just using my own kids as an example, she's been sounding out things for so long that now it's only the really big words that I don't even know how to spell.
That I rely on my spell check for.
Yeah, I need my red underline to tell me how to spell it, you know, and then that takes the pressure off and your kid can just enjoy writing words. My kids have Post-its in their bedroom. At night, they love writing me notes and putting the Post-its on my door or sliding it under when they say, I don't feel loved by you because I told them to go to bed. or a picture of their eyes crying and then saying, I love you.
Right. Oh, man.
I didn't go in for the 10th time, so, you know. But,
evil.
Yeah, so that's gone way down, though, in the past, 5 months, probably. But the Post-its where they got their most practice, actually.
Yeah.
And then over time, you can see those Post-its just getting better and better, and the typing getting better and better, and there's nothing I need to do for that.
Right. What's cool is when my daughter started writing more and started using Google Docs, a word processing program to write, it would show her what was wrong and not always would it offer a suggestion. And she doesn't know how to work it to go look it up and change it. So if it was really incorrect and not giving her a suggestion, she had to either ask or figure it out. She could look in a dictionary. We're working on that skill to do it. But really, I think
you own a dictionary.
We own several. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We own the rhyming dictionary for song lyrics and poetry.
Oh, that's cool.
So it rhymes sounds, like end sounds of words.
Oh, you need to. Link that on the show notes.
So if your lyric is excitation, then you would look up shun. And it would show you all the other words that end in shun. And so you can write.
That's so Lin-Manuel.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have several physical dictionaries.
I looked up Encyclopedia Britannica because I thought that would be neat to have a whole shelf of Britannicas, of its encyclopedias as references. Oh no, those things are still
$2,000.
Yeah, and more than they would have been.
$50 per book.
Yeah,
wasn't more than Joey on Friends who bought V? I think.
Oh, he did.
He bought just one letter. It's really funny.
Oh my
He
word.
got one letter, and so he would try to act smart, and all he could talk about was Vesuvius, or volcanoes, or
How funny.
That's all he
It's
knew.
so funny you said Vesuvius.
I don't know.
Well, Sufjan Stevens has a song called Vesuvius. Yeah.
Well,
There you go. I will link that. No, I'm just kidding. I'll link that on our podcast, Vesuvius. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think my daughter, through repetition of using words,
Right.
learns them and understands them. And when she sees them, and it just takes time, like you said. So to me, there's no reason a 7-year-old needs to remember anything unless they're not spelling their name correctly.
Yeah, maybe their name.
If there's things that actually concern you, but otherwise, I don't think that it's expected that kids need to remember words. Or, I mean, I suppose you would think that they'd remember how to spell cat. So I guess I need more information to make a better statement, but mostly...
But it's still, if they have the phonics, then they can go k-at. And it might be a K or a C, but over time it would become a C organically and naturally. But if you're doing sight words where you're not teaching them phonics and you're just having them memorize, then that is the question.
Right.
How do you get them to remember? Because I have a hard time memorizing stuff too.
Right.
You tell me. I'd like to know because when I was teaching, I always wrote tomorrow and tomorrow's homework or tomorrow's whatever. I did not know if it was 2 M's or 2 R's. And almost every day I had to, because the board got clean because someone else used my room too, I would have to look it up.
That's all crazy. Yeah.
Like I still couldn't tell you. Well, it's probably 2 R's. I'm guessing it's 2 R's. Yeah.
1 M.
But I'm just saying, I don't have it memorized either.
Right. And I don't see it, or I can't spell it unless I see it.
Yeah.
So I could say that I'm pretty sure it's 1 M, but you'd have to spell it. But as a teacher, are you really going to go spell it wrong and then go, oh, that's definitely not it?
Yeah.
Just kidding, guys. And go spell it right? No, you're going to look it up because you have a lot of pressure there to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say, we don't think it's really important that a 7-year-old is remembering how to spell words unless there's something that leads you to think that it's not developmentally on target. If there's something that leads you to think that they're just really not picking up something, or, then it's time to maybe look around, dig deeper into possible. Usually it's not dyslexia. There's dysgraphia. Are they getting D's and B's mixed up? Because that's actually really common and is not,
especially with sticks and circles.
Right, exactly. So it just really depends on your approach to it altogether. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, this was part 2.
That was fun. Talking about how awesome our Coop Group is and how much we love the people in it. And it just shows how far we've come and how much we've learned by just doing it.
Yeah,
you just do it. And then you'll find out what works and doesn't work. And hopefully you pick people who have endurance in their hearts to say, I'm going to try it again. I'm not going to just give up on it because my kid had a couple bad experiences or sad experiences or whatever.
Yep.
So,
all right.
Thanks for listening. We love your support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review to let us know how we're doing, and share our podcast with your friends who need a little community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.